Should your church use AI? Should faith-based nonprofits use AI? I'm going to talk a little bit more about what AI is, some of the benefits, some of the drawbacks, and ask the question, should you use it? Let's check this out. Well, hello and welcome back to the Nonprofit Missionary Podcast. We are here to help empower small to mid-sized churches to become true missionaries to their community by helping establish faith-based nonprofits, secure funding, and focus on impactful outreach. I'm Ken McQuiller. I've been working with faith-based nonprofits for 8 years, and I've been a grant writer for 6 of those years, as well as a missionary. So we are excited to talk a little bit about AI today and some of the nuances with it, and try to talk a little bit through like what should you use it for, what should you not use it for, things like that. So before I get into that, I always like to give a little bit of an update. So if you are seeing this on YouTube, this is episode 21, I think. I don't have the number here. The last episode did not get recorded on YouTube. I still don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. So, but I did get the audio, so that is uploaded on Apple and Spotify. So if you want to check it out, go check it out over there. My goal and my intention is to continue to upload them here. It is September the 3rd here in Cleveland. As I'm recording this, we just got back from Labor Day. I hope you all enjoyed your Labor Day, however you may celebrate it. And next week, the Tavern turns 1. And we have been rolling at this thing for a year, and it's been awesome, and I love it. Continue to pray for us as we are continuing to look for ways to grow, not just at the coffee shop, but also at our after-school program. And it's just been really good. Yesterday, or the day before, we did a church picnic. We had great turnout, and it was a ton of fun just hanging out and not just being in the church. So yeah, that's a little bit of what's happening here in Cleveland. Let's get into a nonprofit tip that's specifically focused on AI. So we're talking about AI in this episode, so I wanted to talk about an AI tool that I would recommend for your nonprofit. I'm not being sponsored by them or anything like that, but check out Grantable. I had been told about it before. I've been messing around with it a little bit, and basically it would be like if ChatGPT mixed with grant writing. It helps kind of create a grant database for you so that you can stay organized. And also for me, one of the biggest issues, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, one of the biggest issues that I have with grant writing is I have a good piece about our history or about outcomes or about a program description, and it works well for one grant, but then it's too many characters for another. You can use Grantable to shorten that up. As you continue to use it more, it learns a little bit about how you write, your style, some of the numbers and things like that. So I would highly recommend checking it out. They do have a free version, which we're always about trying stuff out for free. And then they also have a version that's $20 a month, and I think one that's like $70 or something like that. So check it out. It's worth it to at least see if it's something that you want to do. But on that note, let's get a little bit more into what is AI. Because I feel like a lot of people, when they hear the words AI, they automatically go to the Terminator. And I totally get that, and it makes total sense. But AI, or artificial intelligence, is such a big part of our world today. And people keep saying it's growing, and it might be. I don't know. But it's continuing to develop, and it's continuing to grow in a lot of the digital spaces that we use. So what is AI? It's not some rando robot that's going to take over the world, although I don't know if you're watching this from the future and that's the case, sorry. But AI is computer technology that's supposed to simulate human thought. So that's a very simplistic definition of it. But basically, it's a computer trying to act like a human and trying to give human thought and all of that. So what are some AI tools that are out there? I'll go over a few. So first we have AI with Google. I don't know if you've noticed this over the last several months, but if you Google anything, I just ate blueberries that were bad, is it gonna hurt me? Before it'll give you actual search results, Google now has an AI tool called Gemini that will generate an AI response to whatever the question that you Googled is. Or how many home runs is the home run record? And it'll give you the Gemini response before that. I think that's Google trying to stay in with the AI game. And I think maybe it's could also be, now I'm not by any means an expert on this, but it could be a sign that normal search engine stuff is starting to be a thing of the past. And it's going to be more through AI generated results. So, but Gemini through AI with Google, that's there. Next one is Meta. So Meta has an AI tool called Meta AI. If you have been on Facebook or Instagram at all recently, for a small side note, follow us at Nonprofit Missionary. We would love to connect with you. And like I give the full version on YouTube and all that, but I give shorts as well, so you can share it with your friends and all. Meta AI though, if you have Facebook or Instagram, you've probably seen it. Where at the top, if you're looking at the search bar, usually it'll say ask AI, Meta AI something. If you are looking at comment sections, I like to do that sometimes with controversial stuff just to kind of see what the general consensus is. Meta AI will give you a summarized version of what people are saying. If you're looking at anything, any type of post, let's say there's a post about Aaron Judge, hopefully about to break the home run record again. Meta AI will give prompts below it saying stuff like, who is Aaron Judge? Will Aaron Judge break the home run record? What is the home run record? Things like that. So it kind of like prompts you to do different searches. So Meta AI is also out there. There's also a chat feature with Meta AI. I've not messed with it a little bit, but I have seen it. Next, Magic Studio. Magic Studio is actually the integration with Canva. Canva has this tool, this Magic Studio. I talked about Canva before. Canva is a free tool for marketing, specifically for nonprofits. So if you have a 501c3, whether church or not, submit your paperwork to Canva and you'll get the pro version for free. They have Magic Studio, which is basically an AI generated program. So if let's say you're trying to we're running close to Halloween here. You want to get a flyer for Halloween for our church. It'll give you AI generated templates, as well as content creator templates too. That hasn't gone away yet. So Magic Studio also has features where if, let's say, because some people, they use Canva for documents, which I don't really do, but I know other people might do it. There are AI prompts in there, so there's a lot of integrations there. Also, in general, there are AI-powered tools all over the place. When you're ordering something on Amazon, you can get an AI-generated review where it says some customers really like this feature, some customers hated this, all the customers hated, things like that. A website we use pretty often for the coffee shop is Webstaurant, where we get a lot of our coffee-related stuff, cups, lids, things like that. They have AI-generated stuff there. People now can create photos via AI. I'll get a little more into that in a second. AI is now used to build websites, to create logos. So there's a whole lot of different things that you can do with AI. But I do want to focus a little bit more on probably the most popular one, and that's ChatGPT. I liken this similar to SmarterChild. For those of my friends that are old enough to have AOL Instant Messenger, you remember talking with SmarterChild and asking SmarterChild crazy stuff, because, I mean, if you didn't, I did, whatever. But ChatGPT is probably the most well-known AI tool. It's a generative AI where you can ask questions and it'll give you prompts. It can also, it's not just used as like a question like, hey, ChatGPT, what is the meaning of life, or whatever. You can ask ChatGPT to help you with different tasks that you have, help you create templates, help you create blog posts. It can do a whole lot of different things. If you haven't looked at it, ChatGPT does have a free aspect, and there's like a specific limit, I think, per hour or per whatever cycle it is. But you can also pay for really all of these. They have different levels of it, but it's a tool that's here. But is it helpful or is it not? Because there's a lot. I could keep going on different ones. I just picked a few that I've seen, a few that I've interacted with, a few that I've used. So let's look at some of the positives and negatives. I want to start with the negatives because there are definitely some negatives out there. I think one of the biggest drawbacks to AI being such a big part of our world today is that it's harder to see what is real and what is fake, especially as we're entering into an election season and a very emotionally charged election season. I feel like it's really hard to find out what is real and what is not real. If you're seeing an image of Trump or Harris, is it an actual image or is it an AI generated image? If you're seeing a story, was it something that was actually legitimately reported, or was it something made up via AI? So I think fake news is really, really hard. It's harder to detect now than it was even 3 years ago. And it's something to just keep in mind that if you see something out there, it might be fake, it might not be. So don't automatically take it, do some research, make sure that you're actually like looking at sources, and that also goes with when you use AI, if you use AI, things like that. So that's the first one. Number two, it also makes it really hard to see what is original content. We see that anyway with a lot of people reposting TikTok videos or YouTube shorts or Instagram reels or Facebook reels, where you think it's the person that is posting it, that is the one that created it, but really they're taking content that's already out there and they're trying to monetize off of it. But also some people, they recreate a video using their own stuff, but they're using AI generated info and content that comes from somebody else. I recently had watched a video where this guy who is a baseball content creator was talking about a video that was completely stolen, that he created. He did all of the research, found all the stats and all, and someone took it and made the same exact thing, basically word for word. Now, he's not exactly sure how he did it, but he's assuming it was some kind of AI tool, especially how some of the stuff was presented and all of that. So yeah, sometimes AI can kind of steal from original content creators, where they're working really hard to create something and someone is using AI to kind of piggyback off of them and steal money and things like that. Luckily in this situation, the cloning, the duplication was caught early and it didn't have a lot of viewership. But I know in some cases that some people can lose money that they have through creating stuff on YouTube because someone else used AI to try to create something basically the same thing. So that's another thing that I think is hard. The next thing, sometimes it can really produce weird results. AI is still a very new piece of technology. If you were to go to ChatGPT's website, it says at the bottom is that it's new technology and can definitely make mistakes. I have a few picture mistakes here because I think they're so interesting. So this first one, someone typed in fisherman, and that's the amazing result that came up. People that were stressed out over food. A guy that has a bird. I think people just doing handstands. I don't know what in the world that is. And the last one here is yoga. I don't know what type of yoga that is, but I don't want to be a part of that. Honestly, if you look up AI fails, I got this from like the first website that I saw, AI fails. So once again, not my original thing, but I thought it was really funny. There's like, especially with hands, AI is still very, very new with it. And sometimes you just get weird stuff. I remember using it wasn't Magic Studio, but it was another AI thing. I believe it was on Wix. I asked it to create a cold brew, and it created some weird concoction. And and then it tried to type the letters coffee, cold brew, and it just came out like a jumbled mess. So it is new, therefore it can sometimes produce really odd results. Sometimes freaky ones like that. Number 4, it can sometimes make stuff up. What ChatGPT does, essentially, like, I'm not an expert at this, this is not my expertise, this is just from what I've read. Essentially how it works is it does research by looking at the internet and pulling any resources that it can find into what your result is. So if, let's say, you are trying to do research for a grant and you're trying to get something that shows that there's a legitimate problem in your community, sometimes it'll just make up the stats, and you don't want to use made up stats. That's why it's always important to source your material. ChatGPT, if it's bringing it from a specific source, it'll list it at the bottom. So you've got to be careful because it can make stuff up. That's why doing research through ChatGPT, I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I'll get into kind of my recommendations later. But the last thing I want to talk about is some ethical issues that can be behind it. If you wanted to, you could go ChatGPT, give me a 12-page psychology paper, and it'll spit one out for you. And that can be an ethical issue because, like, are you actually writing it? Where's the line between writing and plagiarism, everything like that? And also, like, with any type of content like that, there is a lot of ethical issues about how much of it are you saying is yours and how much of it are you saying is not yours. And I think another thing, especially specific towards the church world, is something called an AI girlfriend. I know that sounds weird, but you can actually, there's apps out there that you can create your own AI generated girlfriend, where you can customize their personality, customize their looks, and everything like that. I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about this guy that was doing a study on it, and he took his fake AI girlfriend out on a date. Guy's married with kids, his wife was fully involved in the process and everything like that. So he created this AI girlfriend, took her out to dinner, and when it came to deactivating her, he said he felt weird about doing it. He felt kind of sad. And it really showed me that, like, there can be a very strong emotional attachment there. And AI girlfriends can be a whole new level in the church world. So let's say your pastor's not cheating on his wife with the secretary, but he's cheating on his wife with a AI girlfriend. Is that grounds for firing the pastor or not? I listened to a story where something like that happened, where a girl had created an AI generated friend, and then, like, things actually, like, the girl started asking sexual questions. And it's just like, what's the line of whether that's okay or not? There's also just the general ethics of, is AI going to take over people's jobs? People continue to insist no. I kind of agree with that, because yes, I can use AI to create a grant, but also I still need to be a part of the process, because I could put together a grant application through ChatGPT, but there's no guarantee that it's actually going to get funding, or that we can actually execute what we're saying we're going to do. So the stealing of jobs thing is going to be something that I think will kind of continue to be worked out. I think that it'll make people's jobs easier. I do think that people will exploit AI a little bit, because we already see it. And that's just going to be, that's the nature of anything. Like, people exploit credit cards all the time. That's not to say that credit cards was not a good invention. It helps to create a little bit. You just have to have the right boundaries in place. So what are some good things? I've talked about a lot of bad. What are some of the good things that we can talk about when it comes to generative AI? Number one, it can save you a lot of time with editing and adjusting. I use AI tools to help edit a lot of my videos. And for me, where I'm working here at the coffee shop, I'm working on grants, I'm helping with our church. I wear a lot of different hats, including being a dad and a husband. So having an AI tool to help me edit videos, to create captions and shorts so that I can send it out on socials helps save me a ton of time. So for me, that's really, really helpful. For grants, I started using AI for grants a couple months ago, and a grant that I've done before that normally takes me about 4 or 5 hours took me less than an hour. So it can save a lot of time that I can then use for other things. So that's the first thing. Number 2, it can provide you some new ideas. Something that a lot of churches love doing is the same thing over and over again. A lot of nonprofits are the same way, where what worked 5 years ago is going to continue to work now, so you're just going to keep doing it. But sometimes you just need a new perspective. And that's not to say like you need to fire the executive director or fire all of the administration. Maybe that new idea is just checking with an AI tool and seeing how you can approach this differently. I'll give an example of how it gave me some new ideas. So last year for the coffee shop, our first big community thing was doing a Christmas party. We had some time it wasn't necessarily open mic, but essentially open mic. And we just had people coming together and everything like that. So I used ChatGPT to give me a marketing plan for a Christmas party. And kind of gave some of the parameters, like we're a nonprofit coffee shop and all this stuff. And it gave me a list of things. I did pretty much everything on that list, and we had a very well-attended event. I believe it was about 40 or 50 people that were here. So it helped provide me some new ideas of some ways to reach out that I didn't even think about. So that's number 2. Number 3, it can provide a good framework for a lot of good processes, such as creating new policies, such as grant writing, such as making a nasty email sound better. I'm not gonna lie, there was an email where I could have sent it and I knew it was gonna be rude, so I wasn't gonna send it. I put it through ChatGPT to make it sound nicer, and it did. With grant writing, I've said this before, like it's good to give you a framework. It's good if you have this giant paragraph that needs to be shortened to 2 sentences. ChatGPT can do that. For some policies, I had a handbook through the coffee shop. It was good, but there was some stuff I needed to add to it. I used ChatGPT to add some of those policies for me. Now, I still went through it and kind of adjusted things as necessary, but it gave me a good framework. Number 4, it can ramp up your quality. You're able to start getting some of the bad stuff out of there. Sometimes when it comes to grant writing, if you have grammatical errors and things like that, you can use ChatGPT to help edit your proposal, help edit whatever you have. So it can really help create higher quality content for whatever you need it for. Number 5, it provides an unbiased opinion and also learns more about your tone and preferences, so it'll sound more like you. I feel like a big hesitation with using ChatGPT and other AI is that it'll sound too robotic, and some do. Most of the ones that do are the ones that people aren't editing, people aren't making want to sound like them. You can change the tone of how you write things so that it sounds more like you. You can say, give me an email inviting people to our church picnic. Make it exciting and make it sound family friendly. And it'll curate it so that it sounds more like that. You can also say, this is our brand. We talk about Jesus a lot. We have more of an educated people that we're reaching or an uneducated people that we're reaching. So please write it towards that tone. So it can be very customizable, and it's, to me, more of a tool, not just a replacement of an employee. So should you use it? To me, I would use it under certain parameters, which I still follow, and I would just be leery about how you're using it. So for example, don't use ChatGPT to just give you a 25-minute sermon. Now, if you are going to ChatGPT for certain ideas, that's different. But if you were to say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a sermon that is 25 minutes long, and it spits you out a sermon, don't do it. Not just because it's not original, because like you should have the Holy Spirit inspiring you to write your sermons and all, but there's no guarantee that it's going to give you the proper sources. You don't want to be quoting the Book of Mormon while you're up there. You don't want to be quoting the Jehovah's Witnesses Bible or books from the Apocrypha or whatever. Like, use ChatGPT to help create a sermon that curates better to your audience and everything like that. But don't just say, write it for me and that's it. Same with grant writing. Don't use it for that. A rule that I had learned from this other podcast, Pro Church Tools, with Brady Shearer, is that AI should not be the original and only source of your content. So if it's the first thing you go to, it's probably not a good idea. And if it's the only thing you go to, it's probably not a good idea. You still need human people to help edit things, to review it, to make sure that it works. Because even if you're creating a policy through ChatGPT, if you're just like, create it for me, and then you send it out and try to get it for approval, that's not a great practice. Even if it passes and it's fine, you should still have someone look it over, you should still make sure that everything is good. So what can you use it for? I think using it for outlines and editing stuff is great. You also can use it for very specific things. So if you are looking to try to create a plan for an event, try to be as specific as possible. Don't just say, hey, ChatGPT, help me create this event. Say who you are. Specifically name your church or your organization, where you're located. Try to give some ideas on tone and voice and things like that, because that can help create the best option possible. ChatGPT is great for editing stuff, for shortening or lengthening certain parts of grants specifically. I'm talking with nonprofit missionary people. Like, if you're doing it for grants, it's great. If you're looking for like a newsletter description, I think it's also great. Captions and titles for social media posts. If you need like editing support, once again, I think it's a great way to start, where you can use some of the AI tools to help create like different types of videos or whatever. I use CapCut for a lot of the things that I edit, and they have AI tools in there. I like to use ChatGPT for titles. I feel like, especially with SEO, trying to point out some of the big titles in things. And also I use it for blog posts. I don't write a ton of blog posts. A lot of that is time. And I also, like, for the coffee shop, I haven't seen much of an ROI for it. Also because a lot of that's saturated. But also for nonprofit missionary, I don't have stuff set up for it yet. So I'll just be, once again, I just want to emphasize these final few points here. First, be specific on what you want. Give the AI tool as much information as possible. If you're asking the AI tool, if you're asking ChatGPT to edit something for you, be as specific as why you need it edited, what you need it edited for. Act like you're talking to a person that's doing this and they have no idea what they're doing. Number two is please edit it. Please look it over. Don't just send it out. You never know what's going to be on the other side of that after it's done. Make sure you're looking it over. And then number three, use it as a tool, not the end all be all. AI is great. AI saves you a ton of time, but it is not the end all be all. Make sure that you are creating your own original content. Make sure you are doing what God has called you to do. AI can be a great help with it. It's not the thing that's going to replace it. So that's kind of my discussion on AI stuff. I want to get into a little bit of a confessions of a missionary. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about why I think it's so hard to fundraise as a missionary. In my opinion, as someone that fundraises for a nonprofit and has also fundraised for as a missionary, I think fundraising for a missionary is harder. Nonprofits typically fundraise locally to serve a local person. So what do I mean by that? Here in Cleveland, we have our after school program, and we do fundraising, and most of our funds comes from either grants that are based in Cleveland or people that are either based in Cleveland or were based in Cleveland. A lot of our people are locally based. So if I'm looking to do a fundraising meeting, if I'm looking to try to raise funds in a particular way, I'm usually not driving more than 30 minutes, especially since I live in the city, and Cleveland isn't that big of a city and there's not a lot of traffic. However, with missionaries, you have to fundraise nationally to serve a local person. And whether you're foreign or domestic, sometimes that might not be local to you. So what does that mean? In order to get fully funded as a missionary, you cannot stay within your local vicinity. For me, the closest AG church is 15 minutes away from us. To become fully funded, from what I've read and heard from other people, and also kind of in our own experience, you need at least 2, maybe 3 networks to fully fund you. And that's pretty typical. Like for me in Ohio, there's like 280, 290 churches. And not everyone supports us, and I understand that and I get that. Even in the Cleveland area, there's 20 churches. Even if they all funded me fully, like how they normally do, it still wouldn't be enough. I would need to go outside of the Northeast Ohio area, outside of the region, in order to get all the funding that we need. And traveling to fundraise is challenging. I would say, on average, it takes us like a couple days to fully recover from a trip. Not to mention that you feel uncomfortable because you're not at home, you're at somebody else's church. Like, there's that sense of, it's not my home church, you know? And if you have kids, especially younger kids, because we do, they're gonna be off for a couple days. If you're traveling 5 hours there and back, that's a long time in the car. If they are at a strange church that they don't know and they're not with their friends, like it's hard. It's a hard day on a kid. And I understand that some, it's just like the husband, or sometimes it's the wife that just goes and it's just one. That's also hard too, because then it's the other spouse is left by themselves with the kids, and it can just be challenging. So traveling can be very challenging as a missionary, but it's necessary in order to get fully funded based on the way that we have it right now. So if you have a missionary that is out of town, I want to encourage you to do a couple of the following things. Number one, please support them. You don't know how like horrible it feels to drive 6 hours for a maybe. I've done it before. There's been times where I've gone just because like it helps me to write off another trip that I'm taking for other reasons. But it takes a lot to get to a church that's not in my area. Please don't waste the missionaries' time with church virtue signaling, where you're saying you care about the lost around the world, here's a missionary, but then you don't end up supporting them. If you're bringing a missionary in, especially if they're driving a long way, make sure you support them. Because I'd rather pour my heart and soul into a church that's actually going to pick up my support. It's really, really challenging to travel, and it feels like you traveled for nothing if the church that you went to is like, I'm not sure if I'm going to support you, or we'll get back to you. We'll get back to you usually means they're not supporting you right away. Sometimes they pick you up in a couple of years, but usually not right away. So please don't just pick a random missionary because it's Missions Month and then not support them. If you're having someone come in from out of town, make sure you already have the resources to say, we're going to pick you up for mission support, ideally within a month or so. Now, that's not to say that God doesn't provide, because I have had on multiple mission services, I've gone to a church, the church didn't pick me up, but someone in the church did. And I think that's God's way of providing, but pastors don't take on that responsibility. Take on that responsibility and take them in. Number 2, if you have a missionary from out of town, please don't pressure them to stay for a 2-hour long lunch or to host them in your house. I understand it's hospitality, and I'm not belittling anyone that's doing that, because it is great. And I love I've always loved that wrapping around and trying to help the missionary feel as comfortable as possible. And for some, it works. But also for some, they're just trying to get home. It's really hard to tell someone no as a missionary because you're worried about money. And if, let's say, you are 6 hours out, and you're like, okay, if I leave now, when the service is over, I can get home by 6. And then the pastor keeps you for 2 hours and you're not getting home until 8 or 9. And at that point, like, the kids have to go to sleep or whatever. It can be challenging. So ask them, but please don't pressure them. Also, sometimes staying at a hotel or an Airbnb is the only reprieve that they have for the weekend. For me, sometimes that was like my safe place. I know that sounds very dramatic, but being a missionary and being on can be very draining. And just make it easier for them. Just make it easier for the missionaries that are taking a lot of their time and resources to fundraise so that they can then in turn go and do what God has called them to do. So once again, traveling is hard as a missionary, and it's necessary because the resources that you need are usually not within a 2-hour radius. So if you have to travel to another church, churches, please support them, and also don't pressure them to do everything and anything with you. That can happen for the next one when you guys are more like friends. So that's all we got for today. Thank you again for listening, liking, subscribing, the whole 9. We really appreciate you, and if you need grant writing help, I got you. Hit me up at the email that you'll see here. If you need help starting a nonprofit, once again, hit me up. I guess I'll put the email there again, but God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you next time.